Welcome to the Front Lounge with KONGOS. It's been a couple weeks since we've done one. We have been really busy working on some very cool stuff that we'll talk about coming up on this episode. But first, I want to introduce you to and welcome our good friend Jason Roedl to the podcast.
Hello, everyone.
Very special guest. He's our tour manager. Some of you may have heard Mick on one of our podcasts before. He was our tour manager. Now he's our production manager, and he has trained Jason to be our tour manager. And Jason is a musician from Phoenix, Arizona. We've known him for a long time. Very interesting dude, I will say. When you spend 18 months together on a bus or a plane, you hear everybody's stories, and Jason's got a lot of them. But so he's kind of taken over on, you'll see him at our shows, walking us to stage or babysitting us or bringing us our ice cream or
We're like, you guys bringing me my ice cream.
I think I saw a nice smile on Mick's face as he got to hand off those duties, because he knew, he's like, oh, I get to go mix front a house and work on production stuff and lighting and speakers, and Jason has to deal with all the bullshit of being a tour manager.
I mean, there's definitely a little,
Yeah, shit. I mean, you as much as the job kind of is difficult, and some of it's a pain in the ass, you seem to be suited for it because you have the right amount of aggression and Mr. Nice Guy. You can be the nice guy if you need to, and you can also lay down the law, as you say.
I like to be the nice guy first, and if that doesn't work, I don't like being the other guy, but...
How's that saying go about nice guys in first?
Yeah, right?
Southern charming asshole.
Yeah, yeah.
So we first met Jason in Tempe, Arizona at a bar called... What was it called?
The Yucca Tap Room.
The Yucky Tap Room.
Yucca.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I'm joking. Yeah, it was a kind of dive bar in Phoenix, a really well known kind of legendary place there. And we played a gig with his band Mergence, we've mentioned on this podcast before, is one of the top great bands from Phoenix. And we showed up, and this room had no speakers.
I think they blew up right before you guys got there. Is what had happened. Can I back up a here? Yeah. This is a funny story.
Yeah, go for it.
So that night we got there for sound check, and we were sitting there, and we got everything up on stage and started checking, and the speakers, they blew, and the sound guy flipped out, and he got pissed and just walked out the door. And we were kind of like, well, and we're like, well, the other band's not here yet, so we'll see what they want to do. So we go outside, and I think it was Shoop and I were standing there. Was, yeah. And
he never came back, by the way. The
sound guy never came back. He never came back. But Shoop and I are standing outside, and here turns around the corner this big Dodge Sprinter with KONGOS on the side of it.
It was actually KONGOS.com.
KONGOS.com.
Yeah, it had our website on the side.
And I looked at it, and I was like, who are these guys? I was like, oh shit. So anyway, they come out, and we meet everybody, and I, literally the first time I met you guys, I had to deliver bad news.
You were destined to become one tour manager.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, I guess we were meant to be together.
We just happened to have a PA in our van.
Yeah, and that was the golden part of that night. Was I told you guys what was going on, and I think it was Dylan was just like, oh, well, we got a PA in the van. I'm like, let's do it. And we literally did it. We threw it all together, got it all out. Your dad ran sound, I think.
Yeah. And
we had a good show.
Yeah, that was a really good show. That was one of our first shows with people at it. And it was because of you guys and Mergence.
Oh, man.
I remember that being a kind of a beacon of light, because we were in the pit of Phoenix music hell at the time, and we were just getting shit gigs. There was no vibe at them, and the music was terrible, and we're like, what? We are in the wrong city. We've got to get the fuck out of here, because this is oppressive to do these shows like this. And we finally did a show with you guys, and we're like, oh shit, it exists. A night can be fun. You can enjoy stuff, about putting on a show. It doesn't just have to be slotted between two metal bands with a vomit-stained fucking, floor everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we did those gigs. I think we all did at some point.
Yeah, every band has done those.
Yeah,
and metal bands still like them.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. You want this, blues rock band on your new metal gig show.
And you?
Yeah, and it's just kind of like, why would you do that, you know? But yeah, I think that was around the time those shows really started to turn around for us too.
Yeah, you guys at that point had built a really good local following, and so we were happy to kind of be on that bill. And I think that was the first time I actually saw you guys. I mean, I knew of you guys and saw that you played around town all the time, and then that was one of those nights where you come home and say, I didn't think I could learn something from a local band, and we did. You guys, and it's always sad to talk about actually because Emergence isn't currently active, but we had some good times and some good gigs.
Yeah, we played 3 or 4 really good gigs together, and and
that Lost Leaf one was epic.
Oh, dude, that was nuts. What I remember the most from that night was you guys were playing, and the crowd in there. I mean, 30 people in that place is fucking packed. But like all of them were jumping up and down, and I don't remember whose mic it was, but the mic stand was just doing this, was swaying from front to back because the floor was bending so much.
If I remember correctly, Brandon, the bass player in Emergence, you finished up your set because we did alternating sets. Finished up your set and had to run outside, about to throw up from heat.
Yeah, dude,
just from the heat.
I remember that too. It was so hot in there, but. Yeah,
Well, fast forward, what? Almost 10 years?
Has it been that long?
No,
I think those gigs were in 2011-ish. 2010 or 11.
2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fast forward 6 years.
Yeah.
8 years.
And to when we started working with Jason. Emergence had kind of wound down. We had been on tour. We needed somebody. Mick was being just hammered with too much stuff. So we always knew, like in the back of our mind, hey, if Jason ever wanted to come out on the road with us, we'd do it in a second because he's one of those people. He's sitting right next to me, and this is not why I'm saying it, but he's like, if you can find somebody that you can be around, have fun with, trust, know they're going to get the job done, all that shit, be a solid guy, be straight up with you, like, that's what you want in a tour manager. And so
also a skill set, which we'll get to why he's so well suited for tour managing of all the jobs. It's more jobs that Jason hasn't had.
I've shoveled snow.
We thought it was a real long shot when I think Jesse suggested, what about reaching out to Jason to come out on the road with us? And we all thought, well, he's working at a job. You were doing trucking logistics at the time. We thought, like, that's a grown-up's job. He's not going to just drop his life to go out on the road with some band.
It wasn't that I didn't hate my job, but I didn't love it. And like I'd always been a musician, and I liked being at shows and being around the people. I'll never forget that night though when Jesse brought it up to me, and I didn't even know what to say. I was just I wanted to say yes right there. But I had to go think about it for a little bit and
talk to the lady
about it. Make sure that was all good. And of course, she was just 100% supportive.
Yeah,
and
I mean that's a find right there.
And I just I love the job.
Yeah, well, so I mean, it's been good 2 years now that we've been,
I think so.
Pretty until the last couple of months. We've been pretty active, and we've been around the world. I mean, we've been all over the States. We've been to Europe together. We've been to Russia. We've been to South America, all these places. South Africa, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you might be carrying gear or trying to get a flight changed, or dealing with somebody at a venue who's trying to screw you, but takes you around the world.
Yeah. I've seen some spots, man. I never thought I'd go to Russia. Never thought I'd go to South
you
Africa.
never thought you'd go back.
Yeah, totally. Right.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. But no. That's I don't know. I think the biggest realization for me was like the opportunity that what you guys have given me was when we were sitting there in that riverbed in South Africa and those 2 lions got into it.
Oh yeah.
I just about shit my pants. And I think everybody else in that Land Rover about did too.
Yeah.
Because I could hear Marlo over there going, oh.
We've got all the, he's his mouth is right next to the microphone on the camera, so you can hear him just constantly saying,
That's
"Oh,
something
shit.
that
Holy shit."
the lion's roar messes with your space perception because it'll be 50, 100 yards away sometimes.
Yeah.
And then it will sound like the roar is 10 feet away. They
Yeah.
project.
That's how it was that when we were down there at night.
Yeah.
You could hear them on the other side of the river,
Right.
and you hear those roars, and you're just like,
It's outside your bedroom.
whoa. Yeah. You the hair stands up on your arms.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're so disconnected from that stuff. Those are those moments, and they're few and far between of, whoa, this is life. This is real. This is real.
I
life
always
right
think
now.
of the prey animals because we're in a vehicle with a guy with a gun,
Yeah.
and then you think of a deer, and they spend their entire life trying not to get eaten. It's quite
Yeah.
David, if you ever want to get that feeling, just watch Planet Earth 2 High.
Planet Earth 2 high or Planet Earth 2 high? So let's learn a little bit about Jason. What was the first job you had? I don't even know if I know the answer to this.
Man, well, I mean, when you're a kid and you grow up on a farm, the jobs start early.
So you grew up in Indiana?
Yeah, I grew up in southern Indiana. It's a little town called Milan, and my family had a farm, and I don't remember how big it was in terms of like acreage or ever, maybe 100, 150, something like that. But we had all kinds of animals, cattle, pigs, chickens galore. We farmed some crops off of that property, and I probably the first job I ever had was just mowing the massive amount of lawn that we had. It took all day. You'd be on a tractor. Riding
Yeah, that's
around.
something people in Arizona and California rarely know about. I went to go visit Michelle's family in Wisconsin, and they spend most of their summers just mowing
riding around
lawns.
on a lawnmower. Yeah.
One day we'll enjoy this.
Honestly, there's days where I'm just kind of like, I just want to go back to mowing the fucking lawn. No matter how much I hated that when I was a kid, that was it was like Zen in a way,
Well, yeah, it's better than dealing with an airline trying to get a refund on a ticket.
Yeah, that may be the worst.
Well, there is something zen about it. Anything where you can kind of make lines or patterns, and you want to get the perfect trail lines of your mow, and
And I did that.
Yeah, I bet a certain type of personality will take that job and say, okay, well, I don't want to overlap any grass that I've already cut because that would be wasted effort, so let's get this exactly right. Let's get the angle right. Let's get the turns right.
Yep.
That's
And,
obsessive compulsive, not Zen.
Semantics.
Yeah, no, that was probably the first job. When you're out in the when you're away from anything urban, 'cause there wasn't anything around us. I think the town that I called my hometown was actually like 6 or 7 miles away. And there was just random farms just scattered between us and that town, and so whatever needed to be done, winter was always kind of the worst because I hated shoveling snow or scraping windshield. Mom would be like, "Oh, I got to go to work. Can you go start the car, scrape the windshield?" And you're like, "Okay."
Well, let's give like a little highlight reel of some of the jobs you have done. So, like,
I've
been a pilot.
I
You've
was
been
I was a pilot for a little while.
worked at a. You also worked at a charter jet place where
Yeah.
all kinds of celebrities flew in and out of.
That's where the pilot job came from. I'd graduated college and wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do with a music degree, and still don't know. But got this job and was working there, and one of the pilots there was actually a buddy of mine's dad that I went to high school with, and he just one day he was like, "Have you ever thought about giving flying a whirl?" And I was like, "Yeah, that seems like something I could get into." And he's like, "Well, how about I take you out and we'll go flying?" He had this old, I think it was called a T6. It was a World War II trainer for the P-51. So before you ever got into P-51, you did all your training in this thing. He's like, "I'll take you up in it." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So we met one morning and we got out, and he was like, "All right, take the stick, you fly the plane, just small movements, and I'm like, cool. So I did it, and I was like, man, this is awesome. And then he was like, my plane, and then he just doing loops and barrel rolls and all that shit, and I was just loving it. I absolutely loved it. So I, looked into starting to fly, and got it takes a while, to get to a point to where you can do it for a job. It's not just something you can go apply for, take some tests, and well, it might be now.
Yeah.
But
so I mean, when you end up being a pilot, you would do charter flights from like Phoenix to Vegas with some of the stuff you did, or you did all kinds of.
I just so it was weird. Like when I actually got to a point to where I could do it for work, it was after. So this was probably 2003. So that trickle down of pilots getting laid off from the 9/11 thing. All of a sudden, there was 500 people standing in line for the lowest paying job there was in terms of pilots. And and where I was at that point, people actually started working for free because you needed to build hours in order to get to the next level to be, associated or be able to get another job, a higher job up. And suddenly I just started showing up for, flight lessons, to take people out, sightseeing or whatever, that kind of stuff. And there'd be 15 guys standing there. And I'm like, well, shit. So I'd go 3 or 4 or 5 days without flying. And, at that point, you're starting to go, okay, I don't see this going anywhere fast. And I mean...
Career change, yeah.
Yeah, it was just time for a change. But, getting to that point, though, was a lot of fun.
Well, that story you told us about where they... was it like bags of flour that you guys would drop out or something? Or
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Crop dusting.
Yeah.
A friend of yours.
A friend of mine told me about this time where they used to go up and, they'd pick a rock. It'd be two or three planes out flying around doing whatever, and everybody pick a rock. And then they would take bags of flour up with them, and then, whoever could bombardier that specific rock, get the closest. Whoever got the furthest away ended up covering the beer tab after it was all said and done.
Didn't they also drop toilet paper out of the plane and then try to cut it up on the way down?
I heard that was fun. But apparently what they do is a paper towel roll or toilet paper, they just stream it out of the airplane, and then you come back around and see how many times you could cut it, and fly into it, which was great. And one of my favorite things to do is actually go up pretty high and just turn the engine off. Just kind of glide around a little bit, the wind's going by. That's pretty sweet.
I bet that sound going away makes it feel different.
Yeah. First time you do it, you're like, you tense up a little bit. But then when you just relax and go with the flow, it's quite nice. Kind of fun.
So, I mean, we'll be on the road somewhere, and we had to go get an Apple product fixed or something. And then Jason tells us he used to work in an Apple store.
Oh, yeah.
And then we walk into, it just seems like every day we learn he worked somewhere else that we completely didn't expect from you. Because then like we said, when we first met you, or when you came to work for us, you were working in a trucking logistics company.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of all over the place. And I think that obviously flows into why you're used to this idea of change and constantly dealing with that. And it's maybe made it easier for you to deal with being on the road as a tour manager, just dealing with that shit.
I do like I think one of my favorite things, and I've told my wife this a couple times, but just waking up in a different venue or city, going into the venue, meeting everybody you're going to work with that day, getting to know them, hang out, do your thing, pack up, go to the next one and do it all over again with a completely different group of people, because you guys, I work with you guys, and the crew does their thing, and they have their folks that they work with, and I have my folks that I work with, and I find it kind of nice, it's refreshing in a way.
Well, you
get stagnant, that is for certain.
you get a lot more opportunities for something interesting to happen,
Yeah.
Because if you're at your previous job, you're talking to the same people every day, dealing with the same kind of issues. So it's one of the pluses and minuses. So you get a good crew, a good local crew. You kind of interact with some really interesting people on one day, and the next day it might be a total dud, and you're interacting with.
I'd say there's a familiarity even though you're changing venues. So it's surprisingly less small talk, even though you're meeting new people every day.
Yeah.
I would imagine people resort to small talk when they're stuck at the water cooler or whatever the office
Fill in
thing
the
is.
void.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Well, it goes through the phase where you have interesting new conversation, then it goes to small talk, and then when you're with someone long enough past that, you don't need any talk.
Mm-hmm.
You can go. Everyone just walks into the front lounge, doesn't need to say anything to each other, and it's not awkward silence. Just like, oh, we don't need to talk to each other. Let's do a quick breaking news. So we're all probably sound kind of tired, I think, on this podcast. We've been up kind of nonstop for 36 hours almost, finishing up the festival cut of Bus Call, which is our new docu-series, and we've cut together about a 90-minute thing that we're going to be screening at the Phoenix Film Festival on Sunday, April 15th. Yeah. So as usual, we work right up until the 10 a.m. delivery time that we have to turn in our homework. And so everyone is just totally zonked by that. But I think it's looking really, really good. We're going to show about 4 episodes from the series, or a partial of 4 episodes. It gives a real taste of what the season's going to be like.
Yeah, it runs about 90 minutes, and tickets, by the way, are available now.
Jason's got some really good one-liners in it.
I don't know where I get all that from. I saw Shoop the other day, Brandon, the old bass player for Emergence, and of course I said something, and him and his wife both were like, "He said it. That said it. We heard him do it."
You and Mick have these one-liners that I've started to write down. Like Mick has his Scottish Glasgow one-liners that I write down because they're so funny and they're so unique. And then you have the Indiana, like the Southern American thing that I'll hear them occasionally. I'm like, that is so quintessentially Southern. But I've never heard it before, so I've started taking notes of them.
I think they're actually very similar.
They're totally similar.
They're you change the accents. They're very similar kind of analogies. There's a lot of like funny analogies that you wouldn't put together.
Yeah.
Well, is the Southern accent must have some origin in Irish and Scots-Irish accents?
Well, I don't know.
It's probably
Appalachians they're Irish, right, or Irish or something like that.
Yeah. Because if you hear it at the right time, it do sound very related, though.
In the area I grew up in, it was very German, to a point to where there were several towns.
How come you're funny?
I know, right? There were several towns where you went in and all the street signs were in German, and you go in the grocery store and the price tags and all that stuff would be in German. And
really?
The folks would talk in German, and you would just be like, wow.
There's a town what's that town in Texas that we drive
Fredericksburg.
to? Yeah.
Yeah, near
It's like
Austin.
little Germany.
Yeah.
Well,
It doesn't sound quite as charming as Little Italy. Or
No.
Fredericksburg.
It sounds like they're going to try to invade Austin.
So let's move on to the music-only section. We'll throw up some links. We obviously want to talk about Emergence, which we've kind of gotten into. But my favorite song, and this is on a lot of my playlists, is a song called Time Flies by Emergence. Obviously, there's a ton of great songs. We'll throw up a couple of them, but that's always been one of my favorite songs.
Honestly, that was probably one of my favorites, too. That was the fun one to play live. I haven't mentioned Adam and Yod yet, but those were the other 2 guys. So Emergence was Adam Bruce, Yod Paul, Brandon Shoop, and myself. And I actually met them through a Craigslist ad. I was in between, bands trying to find something interesting and reached out to them. And they had 3 or 4 songs that, they had written and stuff was up online. And I can't say that. That's mean. But anyway, I was just like, the drums could be a little better, And I just reached out to him, and we got together, and we started going through this stuff. And Time Flies, I think, was something Adam had been working on, but they just hadn't finished it yet. And man, we turned that song into what it was, and that one was always fun. It was a lot of energy, and it had a darkness to it. And
Well, it's cool to see because it's basically a ballad, but it was cool to see that go down at a show, because so often bands resort to just playing their up songs. I think we even do that sometimes at our sets, feel like we can't play the ballad, but as an audience member, a lot of times that's what people want to hear.
Yeah.
But you always feel this pressure on stage to kind of keep the energy going up. But well-placed ballad does the trick.
Right. It was that you could instantly change the atmosphere of the room, which I like. Time Flies was one of my favorite too.
Yeah.
It was nice to go from, you guys were, obviously super energetic, and then you could feel it's palpable, like a blanket changing the atmosphere. People get quiet, if Yod would start with that guitar or whatever, and the reverb and everything like that. And it wasn't like some English band with tons of reverb where you just are familiar with it. It was quite psychedelic, your take on it.
Yeah, I always kind of thought that was Yod's song too. Like he just, that was watching some old videos. I stumbled across some the other day and was watching him play that, and I was just like, fuck, he killed it.
Yeah, he was a great guitarist. That guy is the weirdest guy I've ever met. And he's such a great guitarist, and he sounds like he listened to a lot of David Gilmour, and he will straight face tell you, he almost pretends he's never even heard of him. He's like, who's David Gilmour? And you're like, dude, I can hear you. It's not that you don't have your own thing going on. You got this whole weird psychedelic aspect to it. But there's some David Gilmour in there, and he'd be like, what's Pink Floyd?
Yeah.
And I kind of believe him, because when you hear about the rest of his personality, he is from a different planet.
He had a life that no one else I've ever met has.
Yeah.
Or had, he's still alive.
Can you talk about that? Or just briefly?
It's Yod's, life thing, and if he ever wanted to talk about it, I'm sure he would, but and I don't know how far he'd go into it, but there was a prominent cult religious group. Well, it's hard to even call it a religion kind of thing, but I guess, but they were big in the 60s, and his dad was the leader of those folks. And it's interesting, if you I don't know if you guys, there's a documentary and all that, and
what's that called?
The Source Family. But
yes, it's very interesting. Anyway, whatever the circumstances in his life that led to it, it made him a very interesting musician.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So and your current band is called Young Mothers.
Young Mothers.
Which I still can't believe you got that Twitter handle or the Instagram handle.
At Young Mothers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
when you said your name was Young Mothers, like, good luck getting any of the social media with that, because it's such a good and it's like an easy name to think of for a band, and you whenever you come up with one of those good names, you're like, oh,
start looking for it. You're like, oh, there it is. Somebody in Tulsa has it. But yeah, no, Young Mothers was started a while ago though. Zach Toporek, he's the singer songwriter for the band, and he had it going on down in Tucson when he was at U of A, and then I think he took it to New York for a little while. And when I got back from 8 or 9 months we did straight, and we had a little bit of a break, I had ran into my friend Rachel Ludeman one night, and I told her, I'm like, I'm dying. I was like, I've been on the road with this band and I barely played any drums, let alone played with a band, so, well, what's going on? Who's looking for something? I'm available. And she said, you remember Zach? Because Zach and I had actually worked on another project called the Through and Through Gospel Review. And I was like, yeah, totally, I remember him. And I liked his attitude back then. I thought he was smart and witty, and he'd actually sat down at the drum set one night, and I was like, oh, dude can play drums too. Cool. So she put us together, and next thing I know, that was probably about a year ago.
And then you guys played that show we did at Phoenix at Crescent Ballroom last year.
Yeah.
It was cool to get to play with you again, do a show with you. And like we said, I always like watching you play, because you are truly the definition of a drummer that holds it down. Because you can if a drummer just can't suck in a band. Like everyone else can kind of scrape by, but if a drummer sucks, everything falls apart, and you just lay down the law.
I've always called it.
I noticed something huge about Jason was that I remember him in Emergence thinking, "Damn, that guy bangs the shit out of those drums," and he's holding that band together. And then when you came on tour with us and you were doing a lot of the drum teching and in addition to the tour managing, and you just like occasionally you'd jam, or if the guys were up there and they wanted to play, Chris wanted to play bass and Mo on guitar or whatever, and you were in your own world. You're like, finally I get to sit down on the fucking drums for 10 minutes and you just play your own thing. I was like, I remember Jason being a lot more solid than that. And then we saw you with Young Mothers, and all of a sudden it's like you're the beat, you're the lock that's keeping that band together again.
It's funny, like, you guys had mentioned that after that gig in Phoenix, and I thought about it for a minute, and I was just kind of like, I like playing with folks that I play with every now and then, to where there's some familiarity going on, and I like it when everybody kind of knows their role and all that stuff. When we're goofing around on stage, like, I'm not taking that.
Yeah, everyone just wants to play there.
It's a commitment thing. Yeah. When you're on a gig and people are watching, then you have a different kind of commitment.
Yeah, to follow up on Joey's comment there for real quick, like, I've always looked at it as a band is only as good as their drummer.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can have a fucking amazing singer or guitarist up there, but if the drummer can't keep it together,
or if you're Led Zeppelin, you're not as good as your drummer.
Right. Right. But Young Mothers has been fun. We're recording and trying to get some stuff out there for the world to hear, and hopefully in the next few months there'll be some more tracks floating around. So
cool. Well, yeah, we'll make sure to throw up links to Young Mothers and Emergence and get all that stuff up there. There was one other thing we wanted to talk about on the music only section. This relatively new style of music that's coming out of South Africa that was new to me, and I'm kind of late on it because Diplo's already stolen it. But it's a music called KONGOS, which is spelled GQOM, and it's kind of, as a lot of stuff in South Africa is this European influenced house music that makes its way into the clubs in South Africa, and in this case particularly into Durban in KwaZulu-Natal, and it gets morphed through the sound and the vibe of Durban and comes out as this really exciting brand new thing that you can hear the influence of Europe and European house music, but again it just comes out sounding uniquely South African, and but also different from what the previous style that was a similar thing like Kwaito that we've often talked about. So there's the main artist that I became aware of was this guy called DJ Maphorisa, and I came across him because there's a guy in South Africa called DJ Fresh, who was a DJ that we knew, and he posted a link to this video of all these kids dancing after they'd seen Black Panther, and they came out and they did this amazing choreographed dance to this South African artist, and they were in Sherman Oaks, California or something, and all of a sudden that song just went viral because it was this really cool video and it was getting hundreds of thousands of views, and all of a sudden now in America, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly because it's a click language, has become this kind of viral thing of music where Diplo's getting into it, and it's kind of spreading across Western DJ music. So we'll throw a link up to that. It's really, really cool stuff to play at the party and make yourself seem like you're hip.
All right, so music business. Moving on, we wanted to talk about the joys of changing flights and dealing with airlines, and
let's see if we can
tour accounting.
Let's see if we can make two of the most boring subjects be interesting to talk about: changing a flight and tour and accounting.
So because the changing flight, we should just beep it because that's most of the time what it sounds like is customer service, and then Jason or one of us going fucking fuck.
I mean, I think I might have learned the fucking fuck from Joey on the first month or so working with you guys. We were at the house.
Oh yeah, by the way, Joey is me.
Oh, Johnny. Yeah, sorry, Johnny.
We in fact we've had to explain that in bus calls because all my brothers call me Joey because my name is John Joseph, and my parents called me Joey as a kid, and blah blah blah. Anyway, it's a long story. So if you hear Joey, it's also Johnny.
Yeah,
Johnny Joe.
Joey Johnny.
JJ.
So sorry, you were saying you learned to fucking fuck from me.
Yeah. I think there was we hadn't been working for you very long, and we were down in the studio in Phoenix, and we were working on something, I don't know, and you're on the phone, and I just hear this, fuck, and I'm like looking over, and I was just like, what the hell? Who's he talking to? And it ended up being our wonderful, wonderful friends over at American Airlines.
I wonder if someone should make a compilation. They're recording every call. They could just be endless hours of people swearing and losing it and getting hung up on by customer service.
Yeah, I stopped swearing just because they hang up on you, and you're just like, well, shit. Now I got to go call them back and be on hold. And
it's really one of the only times that I've seen you get angry. I think I even said it at your wedding shower or the
baby shower.
Yeah, the baby shower. That's what it was. When I was like, he's such a good tour manager. He's gonna be a great dad, and I've never seen him get angry. And it was like, the one time we actually saw you get really angry, and we have it on camera.
Oh shit!
is when you're dealing with changing a flight on American Airlines.
Yeah.
And you looked at the camera, and you're like, I'm getting so fucking sick of this camera.
It's just one of those things that should be easy in life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Especially in this age.
Yeah. Like we go to the internet and get on our phones for some processes in our life to be made easier. And that one has actually, I think, gotten harder. It's gotten worse.
It's a conspiracy. I mean, it's basically barriers of effort. They're putting in barriers. You have to sit through the 30 minutes if you want to get your $50 back that they actually owe you, and they'll admit to owing you, but you got to go through 6 menu items, and most people give up before that point.
My favorite thing is now when they've added press the first number on the thing is press this to talk to an agent or a representative, but really what that is opening up another menu. So they say, press this if you want to go talk to an agent. Then it'll say, okay, I see that you want to talk to an agent, but first let me ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
And then they talk really slow.
Yeah, that's the one where I just hit the 0.
Yeah.
I had a little trick yesterday when trying to get a hold of the Toyota dealership. That all the options on the menu were parts or service or whatever, and I was clicking those, and because that's what I needed, and they were not picking up. It was like 3 minutes of just ringing. So then I just hit sales. And it goes directly to them. They pick up and say, I must have pressed the wrong button. I was looking for service. And then they transfer you, and it's a different, because it's coming from their ring.
Yeah.
What I like to do
internal office.
When it's not a button, when it's not a touch tone button system, but it's a voice recognition one, when you're answering full sentences, I just mumble. And I can't understand you. After 3, I can't understand you. They put you straight through to an agent.
Yeah.
So you just go blah, 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 blah.
I do it. I think we all do it. It's just because that automated system is not going to get you anywhere but pissed.
Yeah.
That's one of the. See, that's a phrase, like a way of saying that.
Yeah.
Ain't gonna get you anywhere but pissed.
Yeah. But no, that it's bringing back memories. just the frustration that comes from it.
Well, I'm glad we captured some of it for Bus Call, because it's part of tour life. It's just dealing with shit on the fly,
Yeah.
So like that one time, I think we had just arrived in Buenos Aires, and you would set up your phone to have international service, and it wasn't working, and you had to call 12 different people, and we're in this amazing, beautiful country getting coffee and lunch and seeing the sights, and Jason's there when we have it on camera, literally for 2 hours trying to get his phone to work, and he's talked to everyone. He knows everybody's name in the T-Mobile office by now.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I was so pissed. That chick at the freaking T-Mobile store in Scottsdale, you know who you are, was like, oh yeah, just take this SIM card, pop it in there, and you'll be fine for international calls. We land in Argentina, I turn my phone on, and I'm like, I'm not getting a signal, and the last thing I need is a phone that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's our.
Hey, here's our tour manager. He doesn't have a phone number.
Yeah.
So tour accounting, how do you make that interesting? I mean, I guess the kind of one of the interesting things to think about is when you play in 43 states in a year, you have to file taxes in 43 states. So at the end of the year, your accountant sends you basically a box of paper with 1,000 sign here stickers, and it's just insane. You couldn't do it yourself.
I feel like we've covered that. I think the funnier way to cover tour accounting is to like bring up an example. What's the funniest receipt that any crew member has ever had to turn in to you? Because just to break down, like, so Jason will handle the accounting for a tour, like where there's money coming in and going out from all kinds of sources. You know, the money from the gig, the merch, and then there's splits on all that, and then there's, you know, some costs of the promoters' costs, some costs are our costs, and then the crew's wages, and, you know, so and so gets a cab from the airport, and that's got to be reimbursed. So that kind of shit. He has receipts coming out of his ears, basically. But has there ever been a moment where like a crew member has been embarrassed to turn in a receipt, or
Mo probably should have been. You know, and I just don't know what it was for. It might have been for something at Home Depot or Foam Mart. I'm still getting over Foam Mart.
Foam Mart?
Yeah, I told
I
Joey
didn't even
at
know that was
breakfast
a place.
this morning. I was just like, listen, I was like, man, I missed the fucking train when I could have went and started a store called Foam Mart that sells
Foam
nothing but
Mart?
foam.
Yeah, they
Like
sell
foam.
foam that you would foam out a flight case for. And
Yeah.
when you go up, particularly here in Burbank, they have a store for everything that you would need in touring, in film, and all that.
Dude.
It's an entire store that just sells foam.
Yeah, plug for Foam Mart. there.
I remember when we all
Foam Mart
landed
kind of
at
sounds
a
like
Walmart.
Mofart.
That's why he likes going there.
We were plastered drunk, all of us for some reason. Maybe you weren't with us yet. At a Walmart in the middle of nowhere at 3 a.m, and Mick got like a shopping cart full of ramen, and but he didn't know he had done it. Because we woke up nobody remembered anything. We just woke up the next day and we all had this ramen on the bus, and but it was cupboards filled with ramen. Because Walmart only sells things in huge packs,
Yeah.
and then in a drunken state, you're like, well, of course I need 2 of whatever the size is. Yeah.
I just thought of something. So at the beginning of a bus tour, we usually stock up, because you want like certain supplies to last you through the tour on the bus. So there's usually a Costco run. I remember before one tour, like we got, what are those lentils called? The Indian lentils? Madras lentils. So they're at every store now. They're really good. Like you can, for a quick meal, it's really tasty Indian food in a packet that you have to microwave, but still it's better than nothing. So I think Mick went to Costco and literally came back with like boxes of those lentils, and we fronted the cost of them. The band bought the lentils, and then Mick like had a couple extra boxes just for himself. And so one of the bays in the bus was practically full of these things because everybody was so into them. But because we fronted the cost, like outside of per diems and stuff, if a crew member wanted a box of lentils, he had to buy them from us. So we had a piece of gaff tape on the bus called the Lentilist. And it was a tally to see who ate the most lentils. And
No one, I think.
Yeah.
Mo won.
Well, yeah,
That's how he got the name Mofart.
I think I might have a picture of that thing.
Yeah, we'll see if we can find it and put
I
up
think
there.
I took it because I was going to hold everybody accountable.
Yeah, Mo.
Did we ever get our money for that?
I don't
There was like at least $100 of lentils there.
Yeah.
No, yeah. To put it in context, that's when when you're on the road for 6-7 months straight sometimes, and you come off a show and a meet and greet, and it's 1 a.m. and there's nothing open, especially in small towns. It's like, and there's nothing that really stores well on the bus. You need a meal that you can just quickly eat, and it's usually either lentils or something microwavable. So we filled up a bay of it. It was hundreds of dollars worth of lentils.
Yeah. I think we had a good 10, 15 like large boxes of those things. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this is kind of a good segue into member berries. Jason, because he's had so many jobs and he's been around the country, like we said, every time we talk to him, we've spent 2 years straight with him, but every day it seems like, or every week, there's something new you find out about Jason, and he's got some really good stories. And there's the one when you were working at the airport.
I
that you can
was.
tell us.
I was working at the Cincinnati International Airport as I was close to home, and I hadn't been there very long, so I was still fueling airplanes and doing that kind of stuff. And I was working over where the private charters all come in. So a lot of the celebrities and politicians and stuff, you'd see them roll through. They'd hop off their plane, head where they were going to do, and they'd come back after their show or their event or whatever, and they'd take off. Well, one day I'm standing out there, and I'll be damned if James Brown doesn't walk off a plane. And I'm just like, whoa, that's awesome. You know, and like he jumps in his car and takes off just like the rest of them. So I didn't expect much of it. And then, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours later, he comes back, and the pilots found a little issue with the plane. They just needed to fix something, and, you know, it was going to take like 2 or 3 hours. So James Brown's there hanging out with us. And, you know, he's an entertainer. I mean, that man was a pure entertainment. And he was just doing his dance and even singing a couple little songs while, you know, hanging out there in the lobby. And I was just dumbfounded that I get this opportunity to sit here and hang out with James Brown. So, you know, he's comes back into our little office, and our little office kind of sat to where it had a window that looked right out to where the airplanes would park. And he had a woman traveling with him, and she came walking by, and she's probably easy 6'1", 6'2", blonde, everything big, you know, like, and smallest skirt, mini skirt, top you could find, you know. And I was just like, well, that's interesting. Well, she goes walking in front of this window, and James Brown's like, see that woman? And me and my buddy were like, yeah. He was like, I love that woman. And you want to know why I love her? And we were like, why? And he was like, well, I got this big glass coffee table in my living room. And he was like, and I like to crawl underneath of it, and she'll be dancing on top of it. And when I tell her to, she'll piss all over it. Needless to say, my opinion of James Brown was completely changed. Expanded. I was going to say, I was like, yep, you're the man. You know, it's crazy. That was a long time ago. That was probably 20 years ago. And I still remember that, and I can see that whole conversation like it was yesterday.
The first time you told me that story, the first time you told me that story, I literally had no idea what type of turn the story was going to take, because I was like, oh, this is amazing as it is. You got to hang out for 2 hours with James Brown in an airport. And then you said that, and it was just such a blow.
Oh, imagine being there. And, you know, and then seeing the woman that he's talking about, and you're just looking at him, and you're just like, man, this is James Brown. Telling this story. Like,
well, it's going to take you by surprise if anybody talks openly about that kind of thing, like some fetish they have or whatever. And just it's not the fetish itself, it's when somebody just like openly talks about it, like, you know, I had the best burger the other day, but they're talking about this woman pissing on a coffee table and with the same tone of voice, and then you add to it as James Brown. It's fucking great.
That's crazy.
Another moment we had when we were there was we were sitting having lunch or whatever, and we could see this guy walking towards the door. And, you know, he was cut off shorts and like a white T-shirt that was just kind of ripped up and fucking dirty, like baseball cap, and it was dirty, and he's carrying a couple bags. And he comes walking in, and he's like, you guys have lunch yet? We were like, no. And here you go, drops these 2 bags of Taco Bell on the table, and then turns around and walks out. And my buddy's standing there, his eyes are huge, and I'm like, what's up? He's like, dude, you know who that was? I was like, no. He's like, that's fucking Garth Brooks. And I turned and I looked again outside, and I'm like, no shit, that is Garth Brooks.
When you say cut-off jeans, I'm picturing Garth Brooks in like these little tiny jean cut-off shorts.
Kind of close. You know, I think him and Mo probably have the same pair of shorts. But yeah, no, that was another good one there. But you know.
I don't think we can top those. Like we're not going to top any member berries on those. So maybe we'll move on to favorite gear of the week. It seems like every tour manager has the Pelican 1560, which, just describe it for us.
It's a little hard plastic case with wheels and some foam on the inside that your life belongs to. Yeah, it's got everything in it. You know, I mean, it's basically a mobile office.
Yeah, it's like the MacGyver Pelican box of...
Yeah, so Pelican makes these cases out of what, I don't even know what it is, some kind of plastic, but special plastic. They're indestructible.
Yeah.
And they replace them. You can drive over them with a truck, one of those types of guarantees. And all our gear is in them, but then they've got these nice ones. They make backpacks and more kind of consumer level things that are still great. And yeah, everyone on the road has them. You know, it's how you spot people or roadies
Exactly.
in airports. They're all pulling Pelicans around.
It's a funny thing about Burbank Airport too, because
Yeah.
a lot of folks fly in and out of there, and everybody's got a Peli. You're like, oh yeah, there's another. He's on tour. Or maybe he's a photographer. Fuck, I don't know. But he's in the family.
And Mick has a bright pink
Yeah.
ones because he likes to stand out. So like when it's coming down the air, down the gate, or not the gate, the baggage claim, he knows that one's his.
That's
and then
his bag.
we met up with Sam from Kings of Leon, and she has one too. And he was quite pissed that he was not the only one to have a pink Pelican.
Yeah, he calls it pinky. There were only 200 of them made. Apparently, they only made 200.
No, you can do
pink
any
ones.
color if you order 200. But somebody from one of their tours ordered 200 pink
Had to
Pelicans.
order 200 of them. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Jeez, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
200,
huge.
200 pink Pelicans, please.
So we'll skip over our usual Band of Brothers question. Deep thoughts, since we're all tired as shit, we're going to talk about sleep deprivation and its effect on perception of reality, because Jesse has been staring at audio handles. He's been doing the mix on the bus call presentation or the screener that we're doing. Danny's been doing color. I've been doing a bunch of editing. Dylan's been sitting there checking my editing on the screen. So we've just been like, no, move it 1 frame to the left. And Jesse's like, no, move it up 1 dB, down 1 dB. And you just go into this weird trance-like state. Jesse, what did you do the other day? You yelled at us from the mix room. You said, why the fuck does Dylan keep saying the same thing over and over? Because he had it on loop. He's just messing with us.
And Jason has a 5-month-old.
Yeah.
So we're all pretty sleep deprived right here.
Yeah, it's funny. I walked in here yesterday, and I think the first thing I said to all of you was, yeah, I finally get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, you got to go to work to get sleep.
Yeah, no, and like that didn't happen last night. Like I just was hanging out, and it was nice catching up and seeing what you guys have been doing. And 5 months of sleep deprivation is definitely taking effect.
I think that's what's crazy when Jesse had his baby and you're used to sleep deprivation on tour, probably more so than most people.
Yeah.
And then you see a new level of it, I think, when you have a kid.
Oh yeah,
It's just next level.
I mean,
It's a different kind of sleep deprivation. Like when you're on tour, you're constantly having kind of bad sleep. It's like 6 months of broken bad sleep, but you still function throughout the day. This type of sleep deprivation, where it's 2 or 3 days packed all into one, where you don't sleep, or you sleep only for a few hours, a couple hours each night. It's a totally different sensation.
yeah, I think the sleep deprivation that you experience in this state is you may hit like a deep sleep, but then you're immediately woken up from it.
Yeah.
And I think that's harder than anything else, especially if it's consistent.
Yeah.
And even more so for the mother, because that cry is like 1 billion years old, in terms of the connection between the child and the mother.
Yeah.
However long life has existed, that connection has existed.
That cry has a psychological and physical effect.
Yeah.
Like you feel it.
Yeah.
Well, so I know what I need to do if I want to get your attention.
Oh God, Mary actually recorded one of Jackson's fits when he was colicky. She recorded it, and every now and then she plays it, and I beg her to turn it off every time. I'm just like, please don't do that.
I guess one of the interesting things about sleep deprivation is they've done those studies on rats where they feed them a full calorie diet and they get all the nutrition they need, but they completely deprive them of sleep, and how quickly they die. I mean, obviously, like all rat experiments, they're pretty mean, but how important sleep is, and it's not purely caloric. It's not just resting. Physical
Nobody really
metabolism.
knows,
No one exactly knows all the purposes of sleep beyond.
What's funny to me is that there are
resting.
scientists who've probably had to stay up all night depriving rats of sleep.
I was just
And there's
wondering.
scientists studying them.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and touring, man, touring's got its sleep deprivation too.
Oh yeah,
You
feel it.
there are days where, you know, you find somebody in the crew in the most uncomfortable freaking position, but yet sleeping like they've never slept before.
Yeah, that was the first time we realized that Mick was a real tour veteran. Is that we were playing a show and we got to a hotel and he just sat down on a chair and within 20 seconds was asleep, like upright, sitting on a chair. And we're all, trying to find room to, sleep on the floor here and there. And you just see
everybody
him
was
sit down.
tired, and we finally got it was a hard rock, so we got rooms and stuff. We got beds, and he fell asleep on the chair in front of the bed.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to take this in another direction. It seems like this is the only way we ever get any work done is when we have some sort of hard deadline that we have to meet and we leave it to the last minute, or we just decide to keep working on it until the last minute and we can't commit to completion until we feel like, oh, we used all our time, so now we can turn it in. It's like, but it reminds me of the first album when were finishing that debut album before Lunatic. And we had organized a listening party for like friends and local press, and we were just trying to get some attention on it before we actually put it out. So it was a hard deadline. And I think the day of the listening party, we were up till 7 a.m. that morning trying to finish something, and we needed an accordion. So it was the accordion solo on the song The Way, which we get a lot of comments about from that album because it's like one of the best solos, I think, of our recording career, even though it's over 10 years old. And I remember this moment where we were so fucking tired. We're just like hitting a wall, and we still have to get this thing done. And so Johnny Joe went into the studio and we set up the mic and we did a bunch of takes on the accordion solo. And I just remember it hitting a moment where the energy turned, where it turned from fatigue into explosive creative energy. And like I was standing in front of the speakers listening back to what he recorded, and I felt like I was literally standing in the music somehow. I was in this fucking enveloped music where I could place the accordion in front of my forehead. I knew exactly where it was in the mix. I could reach out and grab it, coming out of two speakers.
My playing has that effect on people.
Well, it was just something a little magical happened. I think it was because of the sleep deprivation that there comes a point, call it a second wind, whatever you want to call it, like where you might even hit a burst of energy even bigger than just a normal state of consciousness and energy. Oh,
I think your body has your best interests in mind. Your body is a bit like an artificial intelligence being that is really looking out for you. And it's testing you, saying like, I'm going to make you tired until you convince me that you shouldn't be tired. Yeah. If something it takes you that long to finally convince your body that, no, this is reality, we have to stay awake.
Well, what it definitely shows you is that you do have way more energy than your conceptual mind allows you to believe that you have. Because the part of you that says, I give up, kicks in 100% or 99% of the time before you need to.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100% of the time.
No, I know. I'm saying that there's these one and occasional things. It's the same as the kind of feats of strength of people that are lift the car off someone, in a massive burst of adrenaline and fear. But it happens also on a creative side, perhaps, with tiredness.
I was trying to think of a way to justify staying up when you're not having to like run marathons, like those people who run 2-day marathons or whatever they do. But there is a certain kind of deprivation that comes from like intellectual or emotional creative energy that you run out of. Because I can stay up for 2 days if I'm partying, without any substances or anything like that. That's easy. You're having fun. You don't get tired. It's when your mental energy is being drained that everything accumulates like that.
I think it's funny that in the middle of this conversation, I'm making this deep statement about sleep, and Garen walks in with a coffee that he delivers to Jason.
There was a Joe Rogan podcast a couple weeks ago where he was talking with this lady that won the Moab 240, which is a 240-mile race, and she did it in, I think, 50 or 60 hours. She beat the next person by 8.5 hours. Jeez. She had a 1-minute nap on the whole thing or something like that. And she got pissed at her, they have someone that runs or rides a bike with you.
Yeah.
And she got pissed at him because she said, why the fuck did you let me sleep for so long? Because she thought she'd taken a 12-hour, she just went out, had a minute, woke up, won the race, 8.5 hours ahead of everyone else. She could have gone home, had a full night's rest, come back, and still beaten everyone. It's insane. I mean,
well, that's what's so
something I
interesting
just
is the
cannot wrap my
mystery,
head around.
is the mystery of those barriers, or the when sleep deprivation hits a point where you seem to tap into some other type of battery. And that's what's actually kind of mysterious about it, is they don't truly understand.
Well, yeah, you've run 3 marathons.
They meaning
Dylan's
scientists.
run 3 marathons, so he's the only one who knows what the mile 20 wall is, or whatever they call that. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, but I don't ever remember breaking through it. Everyone talks about the 20-mile wall, and you hit the wall and you run out of energy. I think it's the ultra marathoners that hit that wall and then find another burst of energy sometime after that, because those last 6 miles, the only experience I had was like, this is fucking hell. On Earth.
I mean, my version of that is equally as hard was like when you get to season 3 of Battlestar Galactica in one day, and you just have to keep going.
I think he's having to listen to one more monologue in Game of Thrones. Is really what does it to me.
I think there's two types of sleep. Excuse me. 2 types of.
You just
wake
woke
up, Jason.
Sorry, I was sleeping over here. No, there's 2 types of sleep deprivation though. Like the ones where you've had a regular sleep for a while, and then you have this one moment or event that's going to keep you up for 24, 36 hours. You have those. But then, like this new one that I'm experiencing, that Jesse has gone through, is consistent sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
you never catch a break.
You don't ever get it. I think wife and I are getting better. Things are getting better in terms of newborn stuff to where we're catching up. But like those first 2.5 months, like touring, you didn't know what day it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And even to a point to where you're just like, I don't know what time of day it is. Like there was one point where we were driving back from the pediatrician at 3:00 in the afternoon, and I wasn't sure if the sun was still up. And I looked at Mary, I'm like, we need to go home. Like, we really need to get to the house, like, soon.
I think a lot of it is to do with it's disturbing your sleep cycles completely randomly, and there's no order to this disturbances of your sleep cycles. Because I remember using that app one time where it measures the movement on your bed. You place it on your bed somewhere, and it measures the movement. And when you're in a very deep sleep, you don't move much. So you set your alarm, and if you have the luxury of not having to be at work, at a very specific time, you can set it and have like an hour or half an hour on either side of the alarm to wake you up while you're in a light sleep cycle. And I did that for a few weeks, and it really, really worked. I felt myself coming out of sleeps much better, much more awake. And then we went on tour, and I was like, this isn't going to work, because you put your phone on the bed in the bunk and it just rattles the whole time. So, and you're constantly waking up, and that's that feeling, where you're just tired.
How do you guys sleep when you get back from tour? And how long does it take you before you're like, oh, this is what a natural sleep cycle feels like?
I don't know.
I keep weird hours anyway,
Yeah.
so it takes a long time to get back.
I sleep so badly on the bus that when I hit a normal bed, even if it's a really shitty bed, I fall into it pretty quickly.
You go quick.
Yeah.
When we did when we were down in South Africa in 2016, and we came back from that, I think we had a short run of shows after, and then when we finished that up, I think when I got home, it was like 2 weeks of suddenly I wanted to be awake at 1:00 in the morning, and just could not get adjusted back. Like it was.
Yeah,
that was.
I remember the end of 2014, which was our real hard year of touring, 7 months or 8 months straight, going on a little short 3 or 4 day vacation. And I got into a hot tub, and then I got out, and I didn't feel like I could move my legs, and I just felt, not from like heat exhaustion or anything, I just felt like, oh, the 8 months of tiredness from that tour had finally hit me, because now my brain was switched off. I'm like ready to relax, and I just felt like, oh, I'm tired. I need to go sleep. I just walked to the bed and passed out for 12 hours.
Yeah. That's what's it called? Healthy realization that you need sleep, I think, is part of it. Because I mean, normal everyday life, at least preceding going to bed, I'm always like, there's an element of my day that I've wasted, or a lot of the day that I've wasted, and that makes me not want to go to sleep. Is that I feel like oh fuck, if I don't stay up, it's not that at 2 a.m. I'm gonna do something useful and get something done. I'll be fucking doing nothing important, but there's an element that says like, no, don't go to sleep, you've wasted enough of this day already. And it prevents you from just going to sleep properly. Whereas when you work for 2-3 days like this, for 22-hour days or whatever, you have no kind of hang-ups about going to sleep, and you just sleep much better.
Yeah, well, I think we talked about this. This was probably what great leaders and business people are good at. There has to be an element.
What we are not good at.
Yeah. No, it's just an element of being able to say, well, now it's time to sleep. To just actually switch off your mind and truly relax in a more conscious way at the end of the day.
Yeah, I want to have my cake and eat it too. I want to waste my time and then feel guilty about wasting my time, rather than just not wasting my time or not feeling guilty.
I've had that same experience when I've gotten high and we after a tour, a long tour where you've kind of exhausted yourself and you're not really thinking about it because there's just every day's got work to do, and you kind of put it into the back of your mind. And then when you get time to relax, and I was high and it hit me on such a deep level. I was like, oh, I can't sleep and resuscitate myself over the next 2 or 3 days. This is going to take weeks to kind of get back to normal, and it's going to require like weeks of actual rest, and I hadn't had that realization before.
Yeah. Well,
I like baths. You take a bath before bed.
I like it when you bath too.
I tell you, like a mineral bath before bed. You wake up and you feel like it's your first time you're waking up ever in life.
It's funny that
it's like you were in some sort of void before that where there was nothing.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because when we were in Vancouver.
Oh, I was just going to say
and Dylan
isolation tank.
Yeah, we did those isolation tank baths, and the sleep after that was legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to go to bed. Like, we got back and I think you guys were downstairs drinking or something, and I was just like, nah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all right. Well, before we tire of the subject,
yeah, everybody's asleep now.
let's say goodbye and thanks.
Before we go, since Jesse is also a dad. Now, I wanted to get Jesse something. Well, I didn't want to get it, but I had to get it.
Oh, shit.
It is a bib that says, I love curry.
Snap.
There you go.
That's awesome.
Is this custom made, or you find it?
No, I found it at...
how did somebody in the world know exactly what to get me?
I literally was at home.
Not anything for Eve, though.
Yeah. No, that's for Jesse. Yeah. No, I was at Whole Foods, and I was walking by. I was actually buying diapers. And I saw that there, and I was just like, I have to get this. I know who this is
I know what I'm having for dinner tonight.
Yeah, well,
I can't see a picture of curry and not get Indian food.
Yeah.
We'll take a picture of it, obviously, for curry, eggs, and toast, maybe.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
All right, man. Well, thanks, Jason, for coming on, telling us your stories, a few of them. We know there's hundreds more. Tune in next week and check us out at kongos.com/podcast. And all the usual social media, all that stuff. And tell your friends. We're back. We should try and be a little more regular about this, for the next couple of weeks. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Ciao.